Welcome to I Heart Geek.
Hey everyone, welcome to I Heart Geek. Or am I supposed to go and? I don't know, and.
I think that's Dub's shtick.
Dub's shtick?
Yeah.
Something that almost rhymes with shtick. Yeah, I get no. Hello everyone, and welcome to the I Heart Geek Show. I am your host, PB&Jason, on this special supplemental episode of a creator spotlight that we're going to try out and experiment with and goof around on. I am honored to be joined by the strapping, the handsome, the bold and refreshing voice of the show himself, Mr. Todd Harvey.
Good evening, Jason. Good to be here. Good to see you. Always good to be back here in Dub's little parlor of squalor where we do our recording. And
little is the key word for sure.
It's
Although, to be honest, the other studio I work in is like a little bit smaller than this. So
gotta grease the elbows to get you.
Yeah, and we're all like big men trying to like squeeze in there together. So get a little closer, don't be shy.
All right. So, I'm glad to be back. Glad to be here. Glad to be with you.
Yes.
And I guess tonight we're kind of covering the Chappelle show Sticks and Stones.
Yeah, we're talking
Netflix
about
special.
Mr. Dave Chappelle. Now, a while back, I did a reaction video when I saw the Sticks and Stones Netflix special. And I was...
Your ears were still smoking?
Yeah, I mean, and it got a lot of interest as people were checking it out and stuff. And I thought, why don't we expand a little bit on this man, this comedic icon, certainly very modern comedic icon, Mr. Dave Chappelle, and his significance to comedy and his effect and both the pros and cons and controversy that surround him in our very modern society.
Not to mention, of course, the fact that how he's matured over the years.
Yes.
I mean, he started up a little skinny, twiggy dude that was just kind of into facial expressions and stupidity, and he's really come around the corner just in an intelligence factor.
Oh, yes, completely. I remember the first time I saw him was actually in The Nutty Professor, the Eddie Murphy Nutty Professor. I think that was the second movie he did. He did Men in Tights first.
I just remember him from Half Baked.
Yeah, well, that was one that he did.
Oh, and Con Air.
Con Air, yeah. He was in a number of things, but I remember seeing him in Nutty Professor, and ironically in that, he played an offensive stand-up comedian that was picking on Eddie Murphy's character for being fat, and and then he ended up getting his comeuppance when Eddie Murphy changed to the
and he
Buddy
had that
Love.
big hat on.
Yeah, exactly, and the whole crazy teeth thing that he had going on.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, you talk about him maturing, and yeah, he's done through his stand-ups, and I mean he's done 5 big ones on his most current contract with Netflix.
Yep.
And he did several before that for HBO and things like that. Of course, he is most known probably throughout mainstream society for his work with Neil Brennan as they wrote together Chappelle Show, which went for 2 official seasons.
2 2/3 seasons.
And then the third truncated season, correct?
Yeah, and that's when he decided to do his own thing.
Sure. Now, I want to kind of start on Chappelle Show because I've mentioned many, many times how societally important and wonderful I thought that show was.
Oh, yeah. It really pushed the boundaries of both what everybody thought was acceptable and what he saw in America. He's an African-American male in America. He sees things different from, say, you or I, but he's also very, very smart. So,
yes.
So for him to take the societal norms, twist them, chew them up, and spit them out on everybody's laps kind of surprised everybody at first.
I think that the smart intelligence that you talked about first really showed itself on Chappelle's Show.
Oh, yeah. His writing was brilliant.
Yeah, because he, it showed a little bit in Half Baked, no doubt about it. But with Chappelle's Show, that was when he did where he became an equal opportunity offender and destroyer. And what I always thought And you could tell me what you think about this, because this is what I always thought was the most important thing, and still something I think which is most important about him. If you can all laugh at something, then you normalize it. That's kind of what I think is his greatest thing. And I'm mostly when you deal with, like, say, racism or homophobia, or how you feel about that, that's that part of society, the LGBTQ part of society, the alphabet people, or whatever. Now, granted, okay, so that's the one side with him. You laugh at something, you make it normal. Now, the other side with him that I think is important is I think he is one of the most current champions of getting people to remember that the realm of comedy is supposed to be taboo and controversial,
thought-provoking and controversial, exactly.
And shocking sometimes, and offensive.
Well, it's supposed to startle a laugh out of you most of the time.
Definitely.
Especially in modern times. There's comedians out there who are relatively harmless. Kevin Hart.
Yes.
Great example. But there are those that go for the dig and go for the gut punch.
Sure.
And Chappelle is their king, man.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think he is. Now, I can say for sure that there is comedy that I have heard that I have found offensive. Definitely. Even in Sticks and Stones. I mean, there was the part all through the Michael Jackson part that I and my wife cringed. We cringed all through there.
Oh, yeah.
Still couldn't help but laugh.
Yeah.
But that is a subject to me that is like, okay, that's where I start to debate myself. It's like, that's not funny.
But you know what? It was thought-provoking, and then he softened that by segueing into R. Kelly.
Yeah.
Which is just funny any way you look at it.
True,
I mean, my God.
But what do you think about that idea? Like, it reminds me of when James Gunn.
Segueing into R. Kelly? I think it's a pisser.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. I'm talking about, I remember James Gunn doing his, when his tweets came back to life and got him fired from Disney temporarily. And I remember being shocked by reading those tweets too, and thinking to myself, yeah, if I were Disney, I probably at that time would have fired him too, because if you're trying to maintain an image of the family brand and all that, and you got this guy writing for Marvel, which is...
Jace, if your intention is to offend no one, you will offend everyone.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I remember thinking to myself, even though those were offensive, the tweets themselves were okay. It's okay to be like that, but I guess the consequence that James Gunn got, to me, made sense. But in the realm of stand-up comedy, this is where I tend to be much more of a, you need to just relax and not...
Don't look for offense.
Exactly. And
that's not the society we live in right now. Right. So there we are. But he knows all of this. Yes. And when he came out on stage, he deliberately went after every shining beacon on the horizon with a howitzer. I mean, he just, honestly, that's where he earned his spurs, is making fun of things that are supposed to be carved in stone.
Yeah.
But he proves that they're not. And that what everybody thinks might not be the only way to think about things.
Right. I agree.
Which is why people like you and I have twigged to him so hard, because, I mean, we're not like Einstein. We're not intellectual giants, but we're smart enough. and he comes across as just a really smart dude who's not afraid to make people jump in their seats a little bit and scare a smile out of you.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I thought this recently, and I said this on the reaction video I did. He reminds me a lot of what George Carlin did.
That was the first name that came to mind when I was driving here today to meet you, is that, I love our I Heart Geek panel and everything, but without question, I'm the oldest one here. So I can remember back a little bit. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Don Rickles.
Oh, sure.
Gee, many crickets. That guy would just flay the skin off you, and everybody would be crying. They'd be laughing so hard about it, including yourself.
Yeah. Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, but back then, I think people's skin was thicker.
I do too, and again, that kind of brings up the point of the offended class, the outrage class.
Yeah, it's like that's what they do for a living, is look for something to be PO'd about.
Right, but the unfortunate thing, though, and this is where a lot of these guys now are being more careful, and so far it seems that Chappelle has weathered through it just fine, but if you think about Louis C.K., he didn't quite weather through it quite so well.
Well, the performance, quote unquote, that got him in so much trouble was why they blackballed him.
Right.
You don't play the piccolo in a crowded room.
I guess even if the audience is
even if they're
there for
fans
that
of
reason.
piccolos, yes, it just doesn't flow.
Right. But even still, he was one of those ones, though, that when he started coming back to do comedy after he, slowly recovered and slowly started again on stage, was immediately under the spotlight again of, you shouldn't be saying this.
Oh, he was under the spotlight. He was under the microscope.
The microscope.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be saying this, shouldn't be doing this. So with the resources now, unfortunately, that the outrage culture has in their arsenal, what do you think about like comedy and comics, and what do you think they should they take that into consideration, or should they be kind of like Chappelle and be
I'm
like,
so glad you asked me that question.
yeah,
First and foremost, we have to look at the point that right now, the outrage culture, people have had enough of that.
a lot of people have.
tired of it.
I think so.
The majority of people out there have.
Okay.
It's very tiring having to adjust your personal way of life to satisfy one or two people in the crowd that happen to scream the loudest. Mm-hmm. People are tired of it.
Okay.
As far as Chappelle goes, that's what's expected of him, is for him to just walk up and kick the door clean off the hinges and then get on with his day. That's what we expect out of him, and he has the correct attitude for it.
Yes.
He also has the intellect to be able to pull it off.
Right.
There are, like I said, there are the more harmless comedians out there that don't go for the jugular. Kevin Hart is a great example of that.
Right.
And he's superb at it because he's just so cute.
Yes.
Honestly.
Oh, yeah.
He's just a cute little dude and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
funny. But there are people out there like Chappelle that go for the jugular. I don't know if you've heard David Spade's routines.
Not recently.
He's a funny little dude, and he absolutely cares not what you think about him in his delivery.
That's good.
Yeah.
Right.
So, they're out there,
Right.
and I think Chappelle's coming back with sticks and stones and just being so double barrel about his delivery on
Right.
every subject
Right.
is a real teaching point that he understands. He's definitely had enough with the PC culture.
Yes.
And that was his howdy do to everybody, to let them know that, you know what? You ain't got to live by those rules if you don't want to.
Right. One thing that my wife and I kind of agreed upon about him, and I don't know what you would think about this too. He goes for the jugular, just like you said.
Oh,
he
yeah.
pulls no punches. From Chappelle Show, which, by the way, wasn't it great that he made a career for Charlie Murphy?
Oh,
in
God,
Chappelle
yes.
Show? And the Rick
Some of those
James
skits were
and,
just so funny.
and
The Prince playing
Prince
basketball.
playing basketball.
Oh, my God.
I like my friend Kevin said that he doesn't think that there was one bad episode of that show.
Right. Every one of them had at least one thing of utter
Right.
redeeming
Comedy
value.
gold.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, Chappelle is in the position where he can use the vernacular of his ethnic culture.
Sure.
How about that?
Well, that's okay. I
And-
mean, that's okay.
And well, yeah, but I mean, if I were to jump on stage on a amateur's night and start blowing out the N-bomb like that,
Yeah.
oh my Lord!
Oh, I know.
They wouldn't
Yeah,
even
that's
find pieces of
yeah.
it.
That's one of those things. I mean, it's a word.
Okay.
But anyway, so the point I want to make, my wife said about Chappelle, that he goes for the jugular and he pulls no punches, but he is not mean-spirited.
Not at all, and
I
he's
think
also
that's-
unapologetic.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about his comedy, because there are mean-spirited shock comics.
Oh, yeah.
That don't really appeal to me. But he is not mean-spirited. He's very intuitive and insightful, and through all the things, and you listed some bullet points, which we should get to here in a minute, through all of the really straightforward, harsh subject matters, there's always those thought-provoking moments where he challenges you to go,
Yeah.
think about this.
He'll pull a diamond out of that pile of awful, and it just shines.
One of the funniest things, and I'm not going to talk too much about like Trump. I'm not going to talk about Trump at all beyond what I'm going to say right now. When in the epilogue of Sticks and Stone, did you see the whole thing?
I did.
Epilogue? When the guy in the audience goes, "What are you going to do if Trump becomes president again?" And his answer was, "Probably sit back and enjoy a rather large tax refund." Okay, that just killed me. That was so
from
funny.
An African American comic is
who's not a Trump supporter, but that was still funny. That was like, that is the kind of thing where he's like, no, okay, there is a lot you could say about Trump, absolutely, but then there's this to think about. And he's
practical realities behind it.
And he's always the guy that's like, but think about this.
Yeah, this could happen, but
think about this. Exactly.
All right. Well,
so,
I just like the fact that, in preparation for this, I did watch Sticks and Stones again from start to finish. And I mean, yeah, not all of it is funny to me.
Right.
Some of it is strictly
shock.
Yeah, or geared towards his ethnicity, which I don't get,
right?
Because it doesn't apply. But
the melanin issue.
The most part, for the most part, he's smart enough to be able to pull off 95% of what he throws out on the stage, to me at least. Okay, and 95%, yeah, we live in Vegas. That's betting odds.
That's
odds
I would take, absolutely. Hey, just a second ago, did you hear Dub's oldest son say that we were Jason Todd?
Very geeky.
Red Hood, that was cool. That was cool, son of a geek.
Nicely done, young man.
But, the thing about him, I wouldn't say that he's like my favorite comic of all time. That honor would go to George Carlin, like I said earlier.
Right.
But as far as being the most culturally significant comic right now, today, in the middle of the society that we live in now, the internet society, the instant gratification,
information society,
instant information, instant judgment, armchair lawyer, armchair judge, armchair morality, enforcer.
Knee-jerk reaction.
Knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah,
exactly. He is definitely the person we need. And I hate using that term. But I think
and
he
that's
is
an interesting point, because right now Eddie Murphy is attempting a comeback on stage comedy.
Oh, is he?
Yes, he is. He has a tour all lined up and everything, and honestly, I wouldn't pay the money.
Really?
I mean, he's a funny dude, and he was, my God, he was mind-blowing and just amazing when he first came out in that red leather jumpsuit.
Yeah.
But, and he's had a great career.
Right.
But, dude, you had your 15 minutes. Go away. Speaking of Eddie Murphy, though, Chappelle has said on the interview he had with the Actors Studio that his biggest influences in comedy are Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, Paul Mooney, Roy Chubby Brown, and Mel Blanc.
Oh, voices.
How about that?
Yeah.
But that, that really, Mel Blanc especially, is an explanatory note to me why he takes on so many different characters on his show.
Sure, absolutely.
And the different voices, the different dialects, blah, blah, blah. He likes goofing around, and he likes goofing around on all aspects, know?
Well, Mel Blanc is, you're going to be inspired by someone for characters.
That's the guy.
Exactly. Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk just a little bit, because we really can only talk a little bit on a family-friendly show, about sort of what he gave us in Sticks and Stones. You wrote down some lovely handwritten bullet points.
Well, I tell you what, friends and neighbors, if you haven't seen Sticks and Stones yet, I highly encourage it. You're not going to laugh at everything, but I guarantee you're going to belly laugh at a lot.
And the thing about Chappelle, you probably know this by now. If you are... If certain things do offend you, trigger you, upset you, you probably already know he's not the comic for you. You know, there are the Kevin Harts, there are more friendly, family friendly, and great comedians, no doubt about it. But, you know, the thing about Chappelle is you probably already know that you are going to, if it offends you. So at this point in this show, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff he talks about. And, you know, again, if it's time for you to turn off the show, that's okay.
We understand.
We understand.
But there will be some slight spoilers coming up. We're not gonna go over the lines he used because, quite frankly, we can't in this format.
No, we can't. No, we cannot.
Dub just gave me a very sage nod and smile.
Right, exactly. Honestly, on my other show where we don't have quite as many...
Cut it loose a little more?
Cut it loose a little more. I don't think on that show I would go deeply into these topics, to be honest.
Okay, well, so let's see. He starts off with talking about the alphabet people.
The alphabet people.
As he calls them.
Okay, so let's just say the alphabet people would be the LGBTQ community.
And like he says, those people that took a fifth of the alphabet for their own use.
For their own use, right. Now, he, again, as I said, when I watched this bit, when he talks about, you're going to talk about the car ride.
Yeah.
Again, it was not done in a mean spirit at all to me. I did not see.
It was more of a flippant attitude than anything.
It was direct, flippant,
irreverent.
But also made you think.
Yeah. Okay, so he looks at the alphabet people as if they're taking a car ride. The G is driving. The L is in the passenger seat. The B is in the back seat. And the T is in the far back seat, all the way back, and pretty much pisses off everybody in the car.
Pisses off everybody in the car.
Everything they say, they just attack. And then the Q is the guy in the cut off booty shorts hitchhiking on the road
that they pick up.
And I swear, in the middle of his shtick about the alphabet people, somebody's phone in the audience went off.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the whole crowd went, ooh, and he said, what is this, high school? The guy probably has a babysitter. Answer your phone. And the guy jumps up and runs out of the theater, and he leans over and goes, that's weird. That's like his phone was gay. So this is the kind of humor that you have to expect in this thing, is just nonstop, keep you off guard, keep you on your toes.
Right. Now, now what's important about this, about the alphabet people to me, is, again, this is an area where in outrage society right now, oh no, you cannot
even talk
fun
about
of, you cannot poke fun at this, poke fun at that. And here is the thing, that this is something that I truly believe, because my thoughts on the alphabet people, okay, what I actually desire in life is I want them to be treated normally.
Like me.
Like me, like you. I want them to be something that honestly isn't even really thought about. They're just in society, being treated normally, like you and me and everybody else.
With shouldn't have any bearing on the matter.
Right. Equal treatment under the law. I agree with this. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be a thing. I don't want it to be segregated. I don't want it to be something like that. Because, again,
I don't want special rights depending on who you sleep with.
Exactly. And his whole point of taking this on is if you can laugh at it, laugh with it, it becomes normal.
And he made a very valid point at the beginning of this conversation, in that, you know, he's been in the industry a long time.
Yes.
He's got friends of every stripe, of every letter, as he said.
Yes.
And lots of them. And most of them think that his jokes about this are just screamingly funny. He said, except the T's. They hate my guts.
Except the one. Then he went on, though, and talked about the T that was in the audience laughing at everything he said while everybody else was getting pissed off.
Yep.
And the T thought it was hysterical.
But, you know, that's the way his humor is supposed to be taken.
Yes.
He's not focusing on you to make you uncomfortable. He's focusing on everybody just to make everybody feel like
relaxed.
Yeah, they're all part of it. What the
Everyone should relax. Exactly.
Okay, so after that, he spoke a little bit about Louis C.K. and the terribly unfortunate choice he made. And,
Piccolo concert.
yes, and how he got bashed for it and how he was trying to come back. And it's like, give the guy a break. He was like you said, he was a friend of mine before he decided to implode. And there you go. He didn't say implode, of course, but I can't.
No,
say
I know
he
what
did
you're
say.
saying. But again, here's another thing. It's like what CK did, it went public. You could judge it however you want. I will say, quite honestly, there's worse things in the world than what Louis C.K. did. Quite honestly, there are worse things in the world.
You can't even be arrested for what he did.
Exactly. Maybe that's enough for you to not be a fan of his anymore, and that's your right.
And for those of us who notice that we're kind of tiptoeing around what it is that CK did,
Go on the internet. You can look it up.
you know what? Ask us on our webpage. We'll probably answer.
That too, or honestly, anything we're talking about, go look it up. It's
Yeah, it's
easy
not
to
that
find.
hard to find.
Right, exactly. But for him to come back into comedy, give him a break, as far as I'm concerned.
What he does. So he
Exactly.
made a bad decision.
Yes.
Congratulations. Everybody does.
Everybody does.
His was a pretty
Really
poor
bad,
one.
really poor, really bad, but still, yeah, exactly.
Okay, and there's, the next section of his thing I've been forbidden to talk about, so we're just going to blow right through that.
I know what you should talk about a little bit. Talk a little bit about the Kevin Hart bit. I think that was kind of important.
Kevin Hart, according to Chappelle, Kevin Hart's dream since he was a kid was to be a host of the Oscars.
Right.
And, I mean, Chappelle made fun of that as well. It's like, that's a really weird dream for a young black man to have, but
Right.
okay, whatever. And he accomplished it.
Yes.
He was the host for the Oscars, and everybody loved him because, he's funny, he's harmless, he's just a funny dude.
Right.
But then, somebody decided to dig up some of his tweets from 10 years past.
He got James Gunned.
Yeah.
Basically.
And they made him. I mean, he said some homophobic
He made some
things
off-color
10 years ago.
some off-color homophobic jokes. Yes.
And they crucified him for it. And so I guess it was NBC that was hosting the
Right.
Oscars. Told him, well, the only way you're going to do it again is to apologize to the world.
Right.
And he said, okay, I quit.
Yep.
And then he went out for the next 6 weeks and went on every single talk show and apologized just through the roof.
Yeah, but again, this is one of those things where I understand why he did it. His livelihood was at stake, and that's the thing. I mean, I support him saying I quit. I support him saying
Standing up for himself.
but then I also understand why he went on the apology tour, because
Dude,
look at
everybody likes money.
I
and
mean,
he
who's
was looking down at
what's the female who held up the Trump head, whose career is just now
good God,
destroyed?
Kathy
now.
Griffin.
Kathy Griffin.
Ugh.
Yeah. Okay. Now I don't like her either. All right.
She's a mean comic.
I'm not going to get totally into her thing,
Yeah.
but I don't particularly like her either. However, her livelihood was destroyed by what she did. And again, that's the right of sponsors, the right of advertisers, they have every right to do
Bad choice,
that.
baby. Bad choice.
Right. But with Kevin Hart, that's why I can understand why he tried to make good with those people who are basically funding him,
Hey, money is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Not having money was bad.
Right. But it's exactly the point why I think Chappelle is so important, because some 10-year-old bad off-color homophobic jokes,
Who
who
hasn't said immature things on their way to where they are?
Well, me never.
Good grief. If you were
No,
to
I'm
take
kidding.
some of the stuff I was talking about 10 years ago, I'd get run out of town on a rail.
10 minutes ago?
That too. But luckily I don't write it down anymore. Darn it. It just occurred to me I am recording it.
Oh, man, documented. Well, don't ever try to host the Oscars.
Well, I don't think that was going to happen anyways, but okay.
Right. So I guess as long as you don't have sponsors and advertisers, oh, crap.
Yeah, damn it. And here we are back in the damn it corner.
Right, exactly.
Okay, he segues into the current opioid crisis.
Mm-hmm. This was a bit that I thought was interesting.
But he noticed that the opioid crisis currently is affecting whites.
Mm-hmm.
And now it occurs to him that his culture looking at whites in the opioid crisis is very similar to back in the days when the whites were looking at his culture in the crack epidemic.
Crack epidemic, exactly.
and he just got a big smile on and just said, "Just say no." It's like, oh man.
But he also was like, I get you.
Yeah,
I understand.
Totally understood, and that was a very valid point.
Yeah, again, all that. Yeah, completely. You got one more there?
The big one that he saved for the end of his show.
The big one they saved for the end of the show.
That famous French actor Juicy Smollett.
Yeah.
He went after Juicy Smollett for a good 10 or 12 minutes.
He did.
And basically made note of the fact that the African American society was strangely silent during the entire press blow up about this.
Yeah.
And then he looked at the audience and he says, because we knew he was just lying.
Yeah.
It's like,
exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
oh.
Yeah. Now, that whole story with Juicy Smollett was a trip. I mean, it really was. I remember even as it was going on, going, this ain't
Something ain't right here.
This ain't right. And then again, that's sad. That is like how someone makes an attempt to do something disingenuous from their platform to make people look bad that don't deserve it.
He tried to trigger a racial event over nothing that was much more than a lie.
Exactly.
And then he lied about that when he was caught.
Exactly.
You know what it was? It was an attempt at a media coup that failed. And then he tried to bolster his lies with more lies, and it just went nowhere. Even his ethnic community didn't buy it.
Well, the saddest part about that is it takes away from the legitimacy
of real racial strife. Yeah.
It's kind of like how, again, another controversial subject. Again, the heart behind the idea of Me Too is something that I do believe in. But if it is Chris Hardwick, as it were, then that takes away the legitimacy of the real situations. And it
lowers the overall value of the actual problem.
Exactly. And I think that that's, again, something that for Chappelle to point that out is important.
Now, on the very last segment of his thing, he talked about his childhood growing up and how the word destitute comes to mind.
Yeah.
They were at the bottom of the economic ladder.
Right.
And one day he was in, sixth grade? He was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a dance at school, and he asked his dad if he could go. And his dad said, sure. And he told his dad, it's $3 to get in. And Dad said, you may not be able to go. We don't have that.
Right.
And Chappelle says, I didn't say it to his face. I took a step back, but I said it in front of him. You don't have $3. How are we alive? And I hate being poor.
Right.
And his dad sat him down and he said, Davey, you have to understand this. Poor is a mentality. You're not poor. We're not poor. You're broke. And you know what? There was a lot of laughter at that, but that's another great example of Chappelle taking a very simple concept and presenting it as a verifiable gem.
Yeah.
Just a great point of view.
And was it right before that or after that he talked about his son coming up with the duck grease on his fingers?
To his $12,000 suit.
He's like, whoa, no. And then he's like, I never thought I'd be in a position where I could tell my son not to touch my $12,000 suit with his duck grease.
Right.
Yeah.
He thought it was chicken grease, and the kid was like, what? This is duck. And he felt good about it.
Yeah, he did. And he deserves to.
So with that, guys, that's pretty much a very Cliff Notes version of his show.
Yeah. And if you want to get into the more deeper things about him personally, his journey to religion, which he did, his trip to South Africa that he took after leaving Chappelle's show, it's very interesting. The interview that you talk about, the actor studio interview he did, is really fascinating.
Oh, it's a great interview. The host, James Lipton, was just his questions were poignant. They were just right on the money. And Chappelle was about as brutally honest as he could. I think the first question they gave him was, so what prompted you to come back into the limelight? Chappelle shrugged and said, money. It's like, and right then they had me. I was just locked on that interview. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's refreshing that somebody out there that can be almost as brutally honest as they want to be.
Right, and not be terrified that they're going to offend somebody. He honestly doesn't give a
flying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
that's
what I got out of it is it's refreshing to have somebody honest and unafraid.
Yeah, I hope that more grasp onto that mantle, be it in comedy. I'd actually like to see that kind of transfer over to things like journalism.
I don't see it happening because there's a measure of character involved, and there we are.
Yeah, I gotcha. Cool. Well, this was fun.
Darn good to see you again.
Yeah, darn good to see you too, of course. And I think we scratched the surface on someone that you should investigate further if you want to.
Overall, I would give this his special Sticks and Stones specifically about a 9.5 out of 10. It's not going to hit every giggle button you got, but it's worthwhile just on a mental basis to hear somebody, like we just said, unapologetic and unafraid. And he goes out with just guns blasted.
Yeah.
It's overall, it's very enjoyable and it's smart.
Yeah, 9 out of 10 works for me.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the housekeeping stuff. Go to our website.
Go now.
www.iheartgeekshow.com. Some BS about paying for the comm extra, I don't do that. Dub does that.
Use
that's
the comm.
Shtick.
We paid extra for it.
Yeah, that's good. He could do that. That's fine. Go to the Twitter. We have a Twitter page. Go to the Facebook page. On there, we do a lot of talking. We'll chat with you.
Yeah, if you want to know what Louis C.K. actually did, that's where you ask.
Yeah, you could ask there, and then we'll private message you the answer.
Yeah, don't want to put that on public forum.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Go to the Instagram. That's one of our newest social media platforms that we are trying to get more action and activity going on in.
Is that Bly's on that one?
Courtney is doing the organization of that.
Fine job.
Bly's, of course, is one of the biggest behind the YouTube stuff that we are trying to do. Now, this is the format where we really need you to go to subscribe, to like, to check stuff out, to like the videos. Check out our ugly mugs and don't think we're so ugly because we're really not. We're all right looking. We're normal looking-ish. So on behalf of the two particular people at this table, I am PB&Jason.
I'm Todd, the voice of the show.
Keep on geeking on.
And I would like to say thank you, Tyler, for my mug. It is absolutely awesome.
Yes.
You've been listening to iHeartGeek. Our Twitter account is @iHeartGeekShow. Hope you enjoyed the show.